Well, in a major blow to Bernie Sanders' presidential hopes, Joe Biden has taken out 3 of 6 states on offer in what's known as the sequel to Super Tuesday. Here are the results as we know them so far. In a crucial blow to Mr Sanders, Biden has taken out Michigan in the biggest prize of the night with 125 delegates up for grabs. Earlier, we saw Biden take out Mississippi in the first prize of the night, cementing his popularity with African-American voters in southern states. He's also won Missouri, which has 68 delegates on offer. Meantime, Sanders is looking to the Midwest in a bid to breathe life back into his campaign. Let's bring you some more analysis on today's primaries and bring in Brendan O'Connor. He's from the US Study Centre. Brendan, good to see you. Thank you for your time. Joe Biden's southern sweep is continuing. Some commentators are already calling it, saying Joe Biden's the man.
It looks as though he's in a very strong position. Not just winning in the South and Mississippi, but also winning in the Midwest in Michigan, which is the kind of Rust Belt state where Donald Trump did very well in the last election and a Democrat contender would need to do well. Now, still, Bernie Sanders has got the hope of a good result in Washington state tonight. There's write-in voting there, so people will get their vote where that state's obviously in a bit of a shutdown because of the coronavirus. But things are looking very tough for Bernie Sanders. He's in a very weak position, and the results tonight, particularly in Michigan, are going to be quite a blow.
What's changed, Brendan? Because just over a week ago, it was a very different story. Was it really that grouping of some of the moderates who pulled out of the race, forming a coalition with Joe Biden that really helped him out?
Well, an amazing turnaround. Joe Biden finishing 5th in the New Hampshire primary. His candidacy looked to be desperately sort of going in the wrong direction, and he had this remarkable comeback. In South Carolina, he won. He got the support of black leaders, and that's really mattered a lot in the South. Black people seem to have really coalesced behind him because of his associations with Obama, because of endorsements. Other candidates pulled out. Perfect storm. He came back from the dead, and Bernie Sanders is now looking as though he's really playing catch-up. Has looked in this dominant position, Sanders early in the campaign, now looking in a very vulnerable position, and will have to perform tremendously in a debate that's occurring in the United States this weekend to really show Biden up as a weak candidate, which there's some grounds to assume that that's possible, but the numbers look very bad for Bernie Sanders at the moment.
Who do you think Donald Trump would rather be up against? It seems like he has been pushing the Sanders campaign. Would he prefer to face Sanders, do you think?
Well, the polls suggest that either candidate would beat Donald Trump, not by a lot, but a small margin. There's not a huge amount in the national polls between Sanders and Biden in terms of their matchup with Trump. We're a long way away from the election, though. Biden has touted electability as his real strength, that he's a moderate, he can bring out the Obama voters, but he hasn't always been the best spokesman for Joe Biden. The idea of Joe Biden, I think, has been stronger than the actuality. He swore at a voter today or an American citizen today in a debate that occurred sort of spontaneously on the campaign trail. Biden is a bit of a gaffe machine, so he's not what you'd call reassuring, but he has had a lot of experience, and I think that's counted for voters at the sort of final decision. People have actually come out and voted for Biden in quite large numbers. Turnout has been high. The sense that Sanders isn't electable, although the polls at the moment do still suggest that Sanders or Biden would in fact beat Donald Trump.
Political rallies have been cancelled due to the coronavirus threat. How could that challenge affect the political landscape there?
Well, it makes politics a lot more boring, doesn't it? I mean, if you don't have debates are going to occur without audiences, that will be the case in the debate this weekend. Rallies have obviously been at the sort of centre of Donald Trump's strategy for geeing himself up, I think, as much as anything, and giving a sense that he's got some strong support, which clearly you see at those rallies. So politics without rallies becomes, I think, a little more sterile. And that's probably what we've got to sort of see into the future. Maybe this postal vote in Washington state is an example of what we might be seeing in future primaries or even in the general election, where people are voting remotely. There isn't the same kind of fanfare maybe that we're used to at American conventions. a convention could be a breeding ground for the coronavirus. So it will be politics without, I think, some of that hoopla that we're used to in America. And it will be politics that I think in some ways will occur in a slightly more kind of sedate manner as a result of not obviously meeting voters and having big events.
And Brendan, more broadly on the coronavirus threat, how is the US health system placed to handle the challenge? Of course, we're waiting for an economic stimulus package from Donald Trump. This is something that's really dominating political discourse there in the US and right around the world.
Well, I think we can be sort of lucky for our own health system here in comparison that the US, there will be people who are put in a really financially difficult situation to get tested, to get treated. It's not a system that you can just turn up and say, look, I'm feeling sick and I'm a threat to others. Can you test me, please? It's a system where you've first got to show your health insurance often before anyone's going to answer any questions or look at you. I've had that experience of travelling in the United States of, that's the first thing you're asked at a hospital. So I think that's not ideal. We've not got the ideal person in office for a crisis, someone who thinks knows better than experts, but then suggests that he clearly doesn't have the virus because he hasn't got any symptoms, when all of the experts are saying, well, plenty of people have the virus without showing symptoms. So Trump I saw the press conference this morning declaring, as usual, he's doing a tremendous job, that America has got world best practice on these things. But I think the evidence would suggest the American health system is probably not the best place for a public crisis like this because it's a privatized system, and this will really test it, and it will test Trump on what is probably his first real serious domestic crisis. His style of management, many have been very concerned about its chaotic nature, about his sort of inability to listen to experts. We're seeing a really serious test of that going on at the moment.